Good afternoon. Welcome once again to the Gain Line here on Wales Online. The Six Nations then is near the halfway point, so how will the next few weeks pan out and who's in pole position to take the title? Ben James and Andy Howell are here to discuss all that, and as always we want to hear from you, so please do send us your comments and questions. Before we get into all that though, here's a little reminder of what we've seen so far. It's been a Six Nations full of incident, and it's all delicately poised as we head towards the halfway stage. For Wales, it all began so well, a 42-point win against Italy, no tries conceded, and signs of a bright future under Wayne Pivac. Elsewhere, France stunned England on the opening weekend with the help of a familiar face, while Ireland held off Scotland, who had off-field problems to deal with following Finn Russell's exclusion from the camp. Next up for Wales was the daunting trip to Ireland, where the Pivac honeymoon well and truly ended. Handling errors, defeat at the breakdown, and a worrying defensive frailty saw hopes of another Grand Slam blown apart. It all means Wales simply can't afford to lose again. After a tough week of criticism, Eddie Jones and his team bounced back in Scotland. It wasn't pretty amid the awful weather conditions, but a win's a win and England remain in the title hunt for now. As for France, they weren't particularly convincing against Italy, but did what they needed to top the table as things stand. Ireland joined them on 9 points, with Wales and England 4 behind. Victories for Wales and England against France and Ireland in the next round will blow the tournament wide open, so it's all to play for. So Andy, things are delicately poised after the first two rounds, but no doubt from a Welsh perspective, everything's on this France game now, isn't it?
It certainly is, because if Wales lose this match, they're out of the championship race, and France then would be strong favourites, I'd suggest, for the title, because they also got to play Ireland. They got Ireland in Paris. This is a massive game for Wales, and I think it'll tell us a lot more about the transition which is currently taking place to the style of play of Wales under Wayne Pivac.
Indeed. We'll go through team by team, Ben. We'll start with Wales. It seems a good place to start. Let's start with the injury latest, actually. Where are we with Josh Adams and Dan Biggar? Obviously, we know Owen Williams left the squad yesterday.
Yep, exactly. Owen Williams is out, which could prompt a fly-half crisis, but that's thankfully not going to be the case. It seems Dan Biggar's going through his concussion protocols. Obviously got 6 steps to complete that, and he seems to be going through them well. Not currently with the Wales camp at the minute, obviously back with Northampton, but I don't think they're going to risk him this weekend against Bristol, but hopefully, fingers crossed, he should be fit to face France. He'll have to see an independent consultant due to the few concussions he had, I think, against Australia and Fiji in the World Cup, but that's just part of the protocols again. As for Josh Adams, it's all good, you know. It's just a knock on the hip. I know there was a few people in camp who were sort of fearing the worst, thought maybe a groin strain or something when he limped off in that first half, but it's just a sort of a bump to the hip, and he'll be back. So all things considered, not too bad in terms of bills of health. Yeah, I think Dan Biggar looks all right at the moment, but things can change. If he were to be out, and obviously we lost Owen Williams as well, then all eyes are on Jared Evans as a starter. He looked quite good, didn't he, when he came on against Ireland?
Yeah, don't forget he played most of that second half, and I thought he did really well. If you look, didn't take anything away from the Welsh performance, and he defended well, but he's also good with the ball. He was excellent for Wales against the Barbarians. I've got no worries about Jared Evans starting, and Dan Biggar's had 3 concussions now in a matter of months, and they've got to be concerned a bit about his welfare, and they've got to put that first. Even though he's passed some of the protocols, there's no guarantee he's going to pass them all. So Wales would have a quandary if he's not involved, because they need to call up someone for the bench, probably Sam Davies. But Jared Evans, he's the future probably, as it looks at the moment. So no worries at all about playing him. In fact, the attacking game Wales are playing now, his style might suit that even more than Dan Biggar, even though Dan Biggar's from a bit train of form. Yeah,
true. Now, team selection will probably dominate next week. There's been a lot of talk about wings, centres, poor defence against Ireland. Let's talk about the back row though, because they lost that breakdown battle. CJ Stander, whether he was cheating or not, I don't know, but he certainly nailed it, didn't he, on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, he did.
Are things quite right in the Welsh back row at the moment?
I mean, it's hard to say, and it's also hard to see how much room for change there is, because obviously Josh Davidi's out for the tournament, and he's probably the one you would consider bringing back in to add that physicality of 6. Maybe they missed that. Aaron Wainwright, his job was largely to sort of win quick ball, and he struggled with that at times on Saturday in Dublin. Obviously CJ Stan, I think, had, was it 4 turnovers in the end? Something like that. Obviously Tiprick, that's not really his role. Faletau slowly getting back to fitness. I thought we saw a bit better than Italy, but yeah, you look beyond that. Obviously Ross Moriarty's pushing for a starting place off the bench, but is he really in Wayne Pivac's Long-term plans, probably not. I think that's the impression we sort of get from that. And then you've got Aaron Shingler, who hasn't played any minutes in the Six Nations. Is he going to come in and add any more physicality than what Aaron Wainwright's offering? So at the minute, it wasn't ideal in Dublin, but do you realistically see them changing?
Well, they've got to consider it, haven't they? Because, they could easily change two with our back row.
You always talk about balance in terms of a back row, don't you? It needs to be perfectly balanced, which Wales have had in the past.
Yeah, that back row's been... When I say that back row, the back rows Wales have fielded in recent years has pretty much had a balance and been pretty good. I don't think Faletau should have been playing last weekend. I thought he did improve in the match, got better second half. I don't think he's quite match fit enough for this level. Having only had limited rugby in 13, 14 months. So I would have started with Moriarty anyway. Moriarty generally has been very good for Wales at number 8, and I think perhaps there would have been a bit more dynamism and a bit more smashing people on and off the ball with him involved. Shingler started against the Barbarians, key player for Pivot when he was coach of the Scarlets. Excellent line-out forward, fairly physical, intelligent rugby player. And Tipprich, even though they are using him differently now, a bit wider than that, after following Sam Warburton's retirement for Wales, Gatland used him in a Warburton role. So there's no reason why he can't go back and do that. They were up against back row, a really top back row, a world-class back row last weekend. Stander and Peter O'Mahony are top players.
Yeah, and Van der Vliet is just an absolute workhorse.
Yeah, and Wales' ball presentation wasn't great. He was struggling to get over the gain line. Whereas when Ireland had the ball, if you look at the video and all, it's just there on a plate to the scrum half.
Yeah, indeed. The wings end, Josh Adams will be fit, so we come back to the whole McNichol, George North debate. Is there anyone else who enters that debate ahead of team selection?
Probably not at this moment in time. Obviously, Liam Williams, we don't think is going to be fit until after France, if not longer than that. Yeah. If he was fit, you'd consider bringing him in into that back three, given sort of the form he carried the last year.
Well, Wales missed a trick, didn't they, by not involving Louis Rees-Zammit against Italy. He should have had involvement in that game. Arguably should have started, because now you could argue they can't risk starting him against France because it's such a pivotal game. But if they had tried him against Italy and he was a roaring success, he would have been in the team last weekend. I definitely think they missed a trick there, and they should have played him, because on form and how he's been firing for Gloucester, he's the second best Welsh winger at the moment.
In terms of who might come in for Jared Evans, just to pick up on a question that's just coming in here, Rhys Priestland's name's been suggested by a couple of people. He's not actually eligible, is he? He hasn't got 60 caps. So outside of Sam Davis, a couple of suggestions here. Callum Sheedy, do you think?
That's a wildcard option that I know that the man who normally sits in this chair is very keen of. Simon Thomas, I think he's been singing his praises now since...
Yeah, but Bristol not pulling up any trees, are they, in recent months?
No.
And,
cold water on that one.
Sam Davis was in the squad against the Barbarians, played most of the second half. Bit inconsistent in that game. He played really well for the Dragons. He's got about 7 caps under his belt and all that. He would seem the natural choice.
Yeah. Any news on Corey Hill? David asks. There's a few rumours going about, isn't there, about he got maybe a serious leg injury, but there's nothing official from the camp.
No, well, I'd heard a few rumours last week that him and Jake Paul were both out. That turned out not to be the case.
Rumours.
Well, we're not sure if Hill has got a lower leg injury again, which is the lower leg injuries just curtailed him since the match with England last season, or he's got a hamstring problem. So to me, it's a big blow if he's missing, because he's the sort of forward who is ideal for this new type of game.
The pivot game. Okay, let's talk about France then. What sort of shape are they in? I know you spoke to Sean Edwards during the week. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. They obviously beat Italy, not quite as convincing as maybe the first weekend showing against England, but...
Sean told me in a big interview with them in Wales Online, you can read it on our website, that Sean told me that they took backward steps against Italy, but he also pointed out, he compared it to the World Cup final, England and South Africa, saying England played so well against New Zealand the week before, it was difficult to back it up. And he said that was the case, France against England, opening week of the Six Nations. So yeah, they took a couple of backward steps. He was quick to install Wales as favourites for this match, as you expect. France coming over here as the underdogs.
Is he still playing that card?
Yes. France, the underdogs, the young team, average age low, they're still learning and all, a good set of lads and all the rest of it. And he said, look at that Wales team on paper and it is something else.
Yeah.
And he said, and interestingly, he said it's more difficult going to the Principality Stadium than going to Twickenham in the Six Nations. It's the toughest place of all, Wales reigning champions and all the rest. But he said, he also said that he wouldn't be celebrating if France happened to win, and he's looking forward to meeting up with all his old Welsh buddies. But he did one thing. He did say once a whistle goes, his business head would be on.
You going to hold him to that? They doesn't celebrate if they win with the last minute drop goal.
He said there'd be no fist pumping and all the rest. He'd vow to sit in his seat. There we are.
You don't need to read the interview now because Andy's just pretty much read it all out. But there we go. Never mind. They've got a few players back, haven't they?
Yeah, they got Vakatawa back in the centre, Damien Penaud on the wing, and Camille Chat, which is massive. Because obviously before the tournament they lost Chat and they lost. Is it Marchand? No, it's not Marchand. It's the Toulon hooker. He got injured against the Scarlets. They lost 2 of their 3 sort of hookers from the squad. So having Chat's back, massive.
Their lineup wasn't great against Italy. The hookers had problems hitting the target, so having him back it would be a boost for him.
Obviously, Penaud's a big one because the man who stepped into his place against England in the first week, he's now broken his. Is it tibula or fibula?
Something like that.
It's one of those.
One of those.
It's his leg.
Ends in ulla. Rattez, and he started the tournament fairly well. Took his try well against England. So having Penaud back is massive because he was a real star during the World Cup.
Wasn't it just? He's such a dangerous player. What's interesting? We talk about Jared Evans. Is he ready for it? Reece Zammit, is he ready for it? Well, France have thrown the youngsters in. Antamac outside half, less more inexperienced than Jared Evans. Penaud, not much more experience than Reece Zammit. So, of course, they are looking to the next World Cup, which they host in.
All 3 of their fly-halves in the squad are under the age of 21, so there's no experienced option to fall back on in that squad.
And that's where Wales will hope to catch them in a match that France will freeze a bit in Cauldron.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, let's move on then. The other big game, obviously, in the third round, England-Ireland, huge game there. Ireland, they weren't convincing against Scotland, but they looked heading back towards the Ireland of 2018 against Wales, didn't they? They were good.
It's a bit like Ireland 2.0, isn't it? It's taken a lot of what Joe Schmidt had done, and I think Sexton was quite aggressive about this in the press conference. I think this was pointed maybe at a few Irish journalists who had maybe written that Andy Fowler had thrown the baby out with the bathwater. He said that's not the case. We're building on a lot of what Joe's done and then adding things. And I thought they did that on Saturday because it was a typical Irish performance, but also they got the ball really wide, really quickly.
There was plenty of space to get the ball.
There was, but Conor Murray was throwing mispasses from rucks, and he was getting it out to the third defender off one pass, and so that caused Wales all sorts of problems. So I thought they did that really well, and they blew a few more chances in that first quarter than they should have. But then, thankfully, for them, Wales gifted them a few more to score later on. But yeah, it was a really good performance, and they got some bad memories of Twickenham. Obviously, I think they conceded 57 points the last time they were there before the World Cup, and they got hammered by them in Dublin last year. So they got a few things to avenge.
Yeah, what sort of shape are England in there? Are they the England team of before the World Cup, during the World Cup?
No, I don't think they are. We had John Devereux in here last week, and I think
team in the world, isn't it?
He gives a fascinating insight into the dressing room, what could be happening behind the scenes. Having played at that level, there's a Saracens thing that is that creating disharmony in the camp. There's other issues. Players really happy with Eddie Jones, so there could be things going on. We said Ireland weren't convincing against Scotland. Well, England weren't either.
Well,
so
maybe
such a wet. I know that. I know, but maybe that's a bit of credit to Scotland as well. Maybe we just write them off. Yeah. And Ireland, they are in good shape. I think Andy Fowler's doing a good job. He's trying to do with Ireland, maybe adding a bit extras, which Pivot is trying to do, and building on Gatland with Wales. Ireland's problem against England, the last twice they met them, pre-World Cup match and in last year's Six Nations, is they were totally outpowered, as were Leinster against Saracens in the Champions Cup final last season. It's can they cope with the England power? Although England's power, they haven't been firing on all cylinders this Six Nations, so if they carry on like they are, I think Ireland, there's a chance that Ireland could beat them.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into England's demise. I think it's home advantage counts everything in this tournament. First up in Paris, I think France had 4 entries into England's 22 and they scored off all of them. England had the vast share of possession, territory. They just weren't clinical enough. On another day that could go a different way, and
some of their big names had off days.
Exactly, yeah. And
then, this could be the game that England do with Ireland. I don't think there's a lot of love there. This could be the game where England hit their straps, and if they do, because they got that bonus point out in France, they put themselves in a really good position because they got Wales to go to Twickenham as well.
The reality is, World Rugby the top 8-9 teams are just so closely evenly matched that often it's just who turns up on the day and who has home advantage that counts. Yeah. And the Six Nations is no bigger barometer of that than anything, because home advantage counts massively. So England v Ireland at Twickenham, England are going to be favourites.
Yeah, Ireland will fancy it though.
Yeah, okay, and then we're left obviously with Scotland and Italy. I mean, Scotland, it's all about off the field at the minute, and is it the Finn Russell, Gregor Townsend saga just seems to get worse every day. I mean, that's got to be a distraction for them, and it doesn't look like that's going to be resolved anytime soon, does it?
Yeah, for sure, because you would suspect that's split into two camps. There's some players be behind Russell and some behind Townsend. I can see both sides of the argument. Two fascinating interview with Russell plus Townsend's statement. It does seem to me, mind, that Finn Russell is behaving a bit like a spoiled brat. And, I'm a massive admirer of Finn Russell as a player and an entertainer, a Quade Cooper type, but he's been so inconsistent on the international stage. I don't think he can back up what he's saying by his performances for Scotland. The last time he played for Scotland, they got eliminated from the World Cup, lost to Ireland, lost to Japan, hopeless at the World Cup, really. So I don't think he's talking from a position of strength. If it was Dan Carter or Johnny Sexton saying, or Dan Biggar saying these things, I would take a lot more notice of him.
And outside of that saga, what have you made of Scotland?
Haven't seen too much of them, to be honest, John. Thanks for asking me. No, obviously I was tucked away up in the Aviva Stadium press room on Saturday, so I thankfully missed that one for the purists. I think even I wasn't pure enough to watch that one up in lovely Murrayfield. Yeah. But not brilliant. You'd say against Ireland that they should have won that game. They had enough chances, and on another day that if Stuart Hogg can keep grasp of ball, if they have someone like Finn Russell as a playmaker, maybe they win that match. And then Saturday was probably there for the taking again. In those conditions.
Well, Hogg made another crucial mistake in that game, which gifted England a game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they should back themselves in those conditions. But from what I could tell, the kicking game was just not really that thought out. There's a lot of box kicks near the touchline, which when it's that windy and wet, you're only going to risk putting out on the full. So then.
Yeah. Russell's replacement, mind, Adam Hastings, the son of the great Gavin Hastings, he's not a bad player. I mean, he's young, but he's not a bad player, mind. So they can't get away without having Finn Russell, and they have unearthed a really good centre in Sam Johnson.
Yes, Sam Johnson.
He's good. He's been one of the best centres in the championship. Yeah, but let's give Italy as well. Let's speak about Italy. Italy play really well in France. If they play like that against Scotland, they got a chance of winning that match. They would play some really good stuff. If they'd had a bit better support play, getting to the breakdown, they might have actually turned them over. Wingers are red hot, as good as anything. As they played as well as any other wingers have so far this championship. Yeah. And they play much better against Scotland than they did against Wales. So that's going to be an interesting, hopefully, because we don't want Wales to be involved in it, wooden spoon match.
Well, let's see how it all pans out. Let's finish then with a couple of quick questions. Katie says, do you think we actually will see anything of Lewis Rhys-Zammit? I know you think we should, but do you think we will see him at all in this campaign?
I mean, if Wales lose one of the next two matches against France or England, then the temptation will be to throw him in against Scotland, because that'll be a dead rubber last up, Principality Stadium.
Yeah, it'd be huge pressure on that match, man, because Wales, they won't want to finish with the bottom end of the table.
Yeah, there's huge pressure on every game. If they're going to play him,
it might as well play him then. I mean, people talk about playing him in the summer tour, but
playing the All Blacks.
Playing the All Blacks, we're playing Japan in Japan, which is even bigger for ranking points, because you lose to Japan in Japan. That's far worse than losing to the All Blacks at Eden Park. So for me, they'll like it there. The roof will be closed. That's brilliant for Pivac and the way he wants to play. I don't see the harm in throwing in one sort of new face. Like for the last 2 years, Gatland's been throwing in the odd new face here or there. He sort of learnt from the early sort of errors of sometimes using those games against Tongas and Italy's to make wholesale changes, and now it's just we'll just bring someone in on the wing against an Australia or an England or an Ireland, or just one or two changes just to sort of bed them in, and that's how we've seen people like Josh Adams and Aaron Wainwright really grow.
Yeah. Okay, one from Stephen here. Any news on Ellis Jenkins? We were talking about flankers earlier on, not had an update on his recovery for a while, and there hasn't been. I mean, the last thing we heard, it was potentially December, maybe January, and here we are in February.
I did a piece saying it would be after the Six Nations, and then a week later they said, it might be earlier than that. I don't. There's no date yet on his comeback. He's still in rehab and all. He's been out since November 2018. Is
2018,
it? Yeah. End of November. So he's a really serious injury. Let's don't beat around the bush. This is a career-threatening injury. And Ellis Jenkins is a great player. He's a warrior. He's a winner. love to see him back on the pitch, but he's got only can come back when it's right. You know, he's been, he had been taking a bit of contact, but hopefully he'll be back before the end of the season. That was the latest I heard.
Yeah, okay, fingers crossed. And finally, from David, David says, we're still in the race, he says, stay positive. And a final question from another. David, if you had to say now, who will win the title?
I think I'd go France, just because it's Paris last up on that potentially Super Saturday. We don't know what happens in the next round, but it's first v third and second v fourth, so they could pull all four. It could be four. Pulling them two back into the pack. But I think Ireland v France in Paris on the last day. I think that could be lined up for France to win this.
I'm going to stick my pre-tournament prediction of Wales if they get past France. If they get past France, I think they can go to Twickenham and win and build momentum.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Positive. Well done, Andy. Not like you.
Oh, thank you, John.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us as always. Thanks for your questions and comments. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll see you then.